Welcome to an engaging exploration of Ethicisms and Their Risks by Mule Kaptein, a book that delves into business ethics through humor and visual storytelling. This unique approach pairs ethical concepts with cartoons, making these often complex ideas both engaging and insightful. In this video, we'll cover the first 17 pages of the book, spending time to thoroughly understand each concept. Moral absolutism is the belief that certain actions are inherently right or wrong, no matter the context or the consequences. Imagine a world where ethics are viewed in black and white, with no room for gray areas. This concept can lead to rigid decision-making, where rules are followed to the letter, without considering the specifics of a situation. The cartoon accompanying this idea humorously illustrates what happens when people stick to ethical norms too strictly, potentially leading to absurd or even harmful outcomes. While moral absolutism provides clear guidelines, it also poses risks when the complexity of real-life situations is ignored. Moral abstractionism, also known as idealism, is the belief that ethics are based on high ideals, often difficult to apply in the messy realities of life. Picture someone who is so focused on the perfect ethical standard that they struggle to navigate everyday challenges. The cartoon here depicts the disconnect between these lofty ideals and practical implementation, highlighting the frustration that can arise when ideals clash with reality. While striving for high ethical standards is admirable, this approach can sometimes make it hard to adapt when those ideals don't quite fit the situation at hand. Moral absurdism takes a different approach, suggesting that in an irrational and chaotic universe, people are free to create their own moral code. This idea often leads to unpredictable and sometimes irrational behavior, as individuals define right and wrong based on their subjective experiences. The cartoon associated with moral absurdism captures the chaotic and illogical actions that can stem from such a perspective, adding a humorous twist to a serious concept. While this philosophy embraces freedom, it also highlights the potential for chaos when there's no common moral ground. Moral accidentalism is the belief that some events occur without any cause, which can lead to a denial of moral responsibility. Imagine someone shrugging off their actions, claiming that things just happen, without any rhyme or reason. The cartoon for this concept humorously shows how this mindset can be used to avoid accountability, with characters conveniently dodging responsibility by blaming circumstances. While it's true that not everything is within our control, moral accidentalism can become a slippery slope where no one is held accountable for their actions. Moral aestheticism places a high value on appearances, suggesting that being perceived as good or beautiful is the highest moral achievement. Think of a person who is more concerned with looking ethical than actually being ethical. The cartoon humorously portrays how this superficial approach can overshadow genuine moral behavior, with characters more focused on their image than their actions. While appearances can influence perceptions, moral aestheticism risks prioritizing the surface over substance, leading to a hollow form of ethics. Moral agathism is the optimistic belief that, despite the presence of evil, good will eventually triumph. This hopeful outlook can be reassuring, but it can also lead to passivity. The cartoon explores this potential downside, showing a character who tolerates wrongdoings, confident that good will ultimately prevail. While it's comforting to believe in the eventual triumph of good, moral agathism can sometimes cause people to overlook the need for immediate action against injustice. Moral altruism places the well-being of others above one's own interests, sometimes to the point of self-sacrifice. Imagine someone who always puts others first, even when it harms their own rights or well-being. The cartoon here illustrates the risks of extreme selflessness, with a character who might be taken advantage of due to their overwhelming concern for others. While altruism is a noble trait, it's important to balance care for others with self-respect and self-care. Amoralism rejects the idea of fixed ethical norms, suggesting that all ethics are negotiable. This perspective sees morality as flexible, adapting to the situation or the individual's needs. The cartoon humorously depicts a scenario where characters bend or ignore ethical rules when it suits them, highlighting the dangers of a lack of a stable moral compass. While flexibility can be valuable, amoralism risks undermining trust and consistency, leading to ethical ambiguity. Moral anarchism is the belief that ethical norms should be determined by employees rather than management. This idea empowers individuals to set their own rules, potentially leading to a more democratic but also more chaotic workplace. The cartoon captures the potential disorder that can ensue when everyone sets their own ethical standards, resulting in a disorganized and inconsistent environment. While this approach promotes freedom, it also raises questions about cohesion and accountability in a workplace setting. Moral arithmeticism attempts to quantify the morality of actions, reducing ethics to a formula or a set of numbers. Imagine someone trying to calculate the ethical value of a decision as if it were a math problem. The cartoon humorously portrays a character who focuses so much on the numbers that they miss the bigger ethical picture. While measuring the impact of actions can be helpful, moral arithmeticism risks oversimplifying complex ethical dilemmas, ignoring the nuances that numbers alone can't capture. Moral asceticism values self-discipline and denial, often leading to a rigid or overly pious lifestyle. Think of someone who believes that the more they deny themselves, the more ethical they are. The cartoon illustrates how extreme self-denial can lead to an isolated and joyless existence, adding a lighthearted touch to the risks of asceticism. While self-discipline can be virtuous, moral asceticism can sometimes go too far, leading to a life devoid of pleasure and human connection. Moral ascriptivism holds individuals morally responsible for actions influenced by others, even when those actions are beyond their control. Imagine being blamed for something that wasn't entirely your fault. The cartoon highlights the unfairness of this perspective by depicting a character who is held accountable for circumstances they couldn't control. While accountability is important, moral ascriptivism can lead to unjust situations where blame is misplaced. Moral authoritarianism is the belief that those in authority have the ultimate moral say and can command others without their consent. This idea gives power to leaders to dictate what is right and wrong, potentially without regard for others' opinions. The cartoon humorously shows a domineering leader enforcing unethical practices, illustrating the dangers of unchecked moral authority. While leadership requires making tough decisions, moral authoritarianism risks stifling dialogue and ethical diversity. Moral autism advocates for withdrawing from the moral expectations of others, focusing instead on one's own ethical beliefs. Imagine someone who isolates themselves from the ethical norms of society, choosing instead to follow their own path. The cartoon depicts a character who is humorously unaware of the ethical concerns around them, emphasizing the risks of disengagement. While it's important to stay true to one's values, moral autism can lead to a disconnect from the broader ethical community. Moral autocracism is the belief that one person has the absolute power to define what is ethical. This concept envisions a scenario where a single individual dictates right and wrong, potentially ignoring the input of others. The cartoon likely illustrates the absurdity of such centralized moral authority, showing the dangers of a dictator-like figure who unilaterally decides ethical matters. While strong leadership is valuable, moral autocracism can lead to a lack of collaboration and ethical oversight. Moral autocuism suggests following predetermined scripts without deviation, leading to a lack of authenticity or personal judgment. Picture someone who never strays from a script, robotically following instructions without considering the context. The cartoon humorously depicts the risks of unthinking compliance, showing how this approach can lead to a loss of individuality and critical thinking. While guidelines are useful, moral autocuism warns against becoming too rigid in their application. Moral autonomism emphasizes individual autonomy in determining what is right or wrong, often at the expense of broader societal considerations. This idea values personal freedom to such an extent that it may disregard the impact on others or the community. The cartoon portrays a character who stubbornly clings to their own moral code, humorously ignoring the broader consequences. While autonomy is essential, moral autonomism can sometimes lead to ethical isolation and conflict with societal norms. These are just the first 17 ethical concepts explored in this fascinating book. Each one offers a unique perspective on how we navigate right and wrong, particularly in the workplace. If you're interested in more, don't forget to subscribe for future videos where we'll dive even deeper. Until then, keep innovating.